You are listening to The Only Constant, a podcast where we go beyond the usual discussions in technology and business and aim to explore more than explain. Join me for engaging discussions with a diverse range of global thought leaders as we seek to uncover new perspectives and insights in a free-flowing conversation. My guest today is Noz Urbina, and I am your host, Lasse Rindom. Hi Noz, and welcome to The Only Constant. I'm really happy to have you on the show today.
Delighted to be here.
And one of the things I've been really looking forward to is talking AGI with you, because you love that, don't you?
I certainly do. I certainly do love to crap on AGI. Um, I think it's. I'm not going to get into it now. I think it's the most distracting and damagingly distracting buzzword in the whole AI field. And I think we should talk about the practical and more useful or realizable and let's say better defined parts of AI first.
I think that makes total sense, but I just love to get a little bit into it anyway, because what is it? Mark Zuckerberg is now trying to open source AGI, but what are we even talking about here?
Yeah, so it's that's the key problem is that it's something where we have no definition of done. There's no standard. We don't even have a shared understanding of what intelligence is. We use the term artificial intelligence, and I know that I have lots of opinions on about what intelligence is. But if we cannot come to any kind of shared metric for what intelligence even is, then general intelligence is even more layers of vague. It's almost a philosophical question. Yet we're saying we're gonna have software that does it. For me it's absurd and counterproductive because rather than thinking about what this does, we're thinking about when is this us, which is not a useful business question. I think I think that there's a lot of kind of CEO focus on when can we replace people. That's really the AGI thing. That's why it's such a great marketing term.
Yeah.
When can you start firing loads and loads of people? Once
Yeah.
we put the G in AGI, then you can start cutting heads. But I think that's just a wrong way to think about the whole
I think that's the
field.
wrong way as well to think about it, and also the wrong goal to go for, because I don't think you'll get to that. Firing people directly. It'll be something that happens indirectly or obliquely. You'll get to that at some point, or maybe you can avoid hiring new people, or maybe this is a
Hmm.
good fix for a very small generation. The post-boomer, the Gen X's, Gen C's, small generations. Maybe it's a fix for that as well. So.
Hmm.
But I think that what you're saying is also that we have these opinions about what it is. It becomes a philosophical discussion, and that's also some of the things I see a little bit with just generative AI. That it is a discussion about, oh, but this is just like me, and this is good enough. There's
Hmm.
opinions in it, and then there's a lot of opinions saying that no, this makes mistakes, and I don't trust it. Maybe we should dive a little bit into the generative AI that we currently have, and how that works out for us, instead of talking about an AGI we have on, I don't know, in marketing.
Well, I'll put one last metaphor in the AGI thing, which I think helps show why I think we shouldn't get too drawn into that discussion.
Mhm.
Um, it's like humanoid robots.
Yeah.
So if you think about having a robot that's shaped like a human and can kind of physically do what a human can do, is great. That could fulfill lots of new areas, and you could do lots of new things with it, which we can't do today. So lots of growth potential there. Sure, fun, but if you think that that's all of robotics, then you're missing the point. Like, we should be understanding what AI really is instead of just focusing on this little bit that has to do with, like, oh, does it look like a replication of us?
Yeah, yeah, but I actually I completely agree. I think that the problem is that we're looking at humanity from the lens of robots, instead of looking at robots from the lens of humanity. There's a twist there, because I think if you
Hmm.
look at us from a robot, you say, "Oh, but I almost think like a robot." But that's not the point. The point is that I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm allowed to fail. I've mentioned that many times, because I
Hmm.
have human rights. No one kills me if I make a mistake. That's the point. But if a robot makes a mistake, I'll kill it. That's looking at
Hmm.
the robot from the human lens. I have rights, built that up in society for years, because we matter to each other. Everything we do is about us humans. So you have
Hmm.
to look at it that way. You can't look at humanity from the point of a robot and saying, "Oh, you look a little bit like me." We don't. That's not the point. It's just missing the point completely, I think. And
Yeah.
also,
So, but you're taking us into the right area, which is how do we use the things that we do have, which
yeah,
are robots that are AIs and or robots that make mistakes, and that's where we currently are, and that actually that's the business question.
yeah,
How can we make use of unreliable computers?
yeah. And and you posted a couple of weeks ago that that OpenAI doesn't have a GPT in their support, and I really loved that post, and I've been using it everywhere ever since because I think that's like. So you're saying, here use agents, GPT, and AGI, but they don't even trust it enough to put it in their own, product support. Why do you think so?
Well, a lot of people came back as defenders and go, "Hey, well, that's called being focused. That's a company that's that they know where their business model is and they know how to focus." But what that says to me is that they feel that it's more efficient not to use their product.
Mm,
So, because if they were focused, then they would be saying, "Okay, how can we minimize effort?" And so, what's minimal effort? Using our product or using a third party? Uh, so they what? So to give a bit of context, what they do use is a button based chatbot, which is kind of like
the decision tree one, right?
yeah. So for those who don't know what a decision tree is, it's a chatbot who works like a phone uh, auto answering machine. So when you call in and go dial 1 for
Mm.
support, dial 2 for sales, dial 3, and then you get to sales and they go if you have a pre-sales query, dial 1. Those which we all love, that that is a decision tree. And the reason that we want to smash our phones in half when we're talking to those things is because it's this rigid structure in which I have to figure out how you have categorized my problem.
Yeah.
So if my problem is X under option 3? Is it 2 levels under option 3? So and because
I'm always
my
trying to
mental
figure out the quickest way to get to a human. Just,
yeah, exactly.
just get me out of
Exactly.
this loop, right?
Exactly.
Anyone, I don't care.
Exactly.
Even
Just you just
look in the web for weird phone numbers for the company, so I can call someone
it,
who doesn't have
totally.
this.
Or you just keep going, agent, speak to a representative, agent, after every prompt. So we despise those because they enforce a mental model on you that the company has worked out,
Mm,
and that's your only way to navigate the problem, and that's incredibly painful. So basically, OpenAI have that. If you click a few buttons like support, billing, sales, I don't remember what the options are that I posted, but if you get to a certain level, you can put in a text thing, and they will get back to you by email.
mm.
But it is totally unlike the ChatGPT experience, and in fact, it's running on a third-party program called Intercom, which is like the industry standard for these chatbots. I've seen better implementations of Intercom by companies who are not specialized in chatbots and artificial intelligence. So basically, ChatGPT looked at their own product and said, it will be more efficient for us and it'll allow us to focus more if we don't use our product than if we use our product.
So you don't
But
think they were
you
looking
should
at
use our
risk? You
product.
don't think that? Yeah, exactly. You don't think they looked at risk, that it could say some things they didn't mean or didn't?
Possibly, possibly. Which would be even another mark against that decision. So if they don't trust their product to do the job without, for example, making some high profile blunder, why would Walmart or IKEA
Yeah.
or American Airlines want to allow it to possibly make some high profile blunder?
Yeah, but it came out. Your post and was wonderfully timed. I don't know if you did that on purpose. Oh, we'll release the GPT store, and then Noz Urbina is posting. They don't even have it in their own support. Like, I loved it.
Yeah. Well, the timing is very easy because they something is being announced just about every week.
Yeah,
So
true.
so so that was definitely blind luck. No, it wasn't blind luck because I was contacting them because I had issues with one of these new releases.
Mm.
So it prompted me. So that was not a coincidence, but it
But,
was
but
not my
but
intent.
you know a lot about these kind of these chatbots as well. And the problem with the GPT store is that what I've read as well from other people is that you don't know what they're trained on. You don't know if someone's made the GPT worse than just the basic GPT. So the whole GPT market store. Are you a fan of that? Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, so I have been making GPTs before GPTs existed. So so let's to give a bit of context. So I was working on how we do chatbots and artificial intelligence applications in the mid 2010s.
Mm,
So I was talking to let's say like one of the top two banks in the UK, one of the top five banks in Europe, and we were looking at their chatbots. And what we found was the best thing to help people get answers to their questions was when we adjusted the structure of the data. So it was the tagging and the categorizing of the source information, which helped artificial intelligence find the right stuff.
mm,
And that has been revalidated. I'll get into that in a minute, but I just 3 weeks ago saw a report from multiple leaders saying that we need to focus on getting a good model, sure, but the big gains are how do we properly structure and prepare our content and our data so that it's good to consume by models.
mm,
So when I'm creating a GPT, I'm thinking, how do I package up the knowledge that I have about the domain in a way that's going to be accessible by people. My main focus right now is doing things like creating persona simulations.
mm,
I'm creating these ways where you can load up your market research, your market understanding, and then what we would call like a marketing persona, and as much background and data as we can about how we got to that persona into an AI, which you can bottle up and say, okay, this is our millennial North American teen, and I can load her up and I can speak to her and I can ask her questions. I can ask her, well, what would her concerns be in this situation, and what would
mm.
she want out of this kind of product, and what kind of I can talk to my research.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful. But then you've got other people who are putting in, 3 lines like write a limerick and throwing that on the GPT store. And that creates just a lot of noise. We are in this for those of you who lived or like were actively part of the .com boom. This is what it's reminding me of.
Yeah.
We're moving fast. We're breaking stuff. We've got the focus is on volume, speed, and quality. Volume and speed rather than quality.
I think we just I actually just today just before a call we're building a retrieval bot that was supposed to understand the schema of a
Hmm.
database, so it can generate some SQL code just to retrieve data, translate my natural language into code.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and we just told it there's only these are the fields, right, in the whole schema. That's what there's
Hmm.
7 tables,
Hmm.
and it kept on for some weird reason making up an eighth table or the details that didn't exist. So it kept. I'm like, hey, I've told you there's only this. So if I ended up, just repeating to it, there's only these 7 tables, and then
Yeah.
giving it all the fields again, and then it stopped doing it. But that repeating, it was there. The data was there. I triple, quadruple checked, but it kept on hallucinating something, even just because it doesn't read the context well enough all the time. And there's really no tweaking to that. That annoys me. Annoys me.
Yeah.
Tremendous. Just like you just told me about that Midjourney experience you just had about generating an
Oh, it
image.
was yeah, it was OpenAI. So
Oh, OpenAI,
yeah,
not Midjourney. Okay,
yeah. So
I had fun with Midjourney this morning. You know,
exactly. So I did a post little while back where I was trying to test because everyone had told me that OpenAI had done much better than Midjourney in terms of prompt understanding. If
mm,
you told it, I want a banana shaped couch with an orange rug to the left of a whatever
yeah,
window, then it was doing way 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 better than all the other applications. So I tried to create a dinner party of 2 men and 2 women having dinner around a table in heaven. And I started. And this took me about an hour, and it got worse rather than getting better, which was
Yes.
the interesting thing.
Happens all the time for some
Yeah, it
weird
really
reason.
happens all the time. So, and I just simply getting it to do 2 men and 2 women was one of the biggest challenges. Uh, and this, I would love to get into this because I'm at a point now where I'm spending so much time configuring these AIs that I wake up in the middle of the night writing prompts in my head, and I can't get back to sleep because I've got okay. So if I had this AI, and then I was sending the prompts over here, and then I would process the data, and I can't get it out of my head. And so this basically, I kept saying exactly 4 people, 2 men on the left, 2 women on the right, like all like
Mhm.
with capital letters and exclamation marks, and trying all the tricks that you find online about you're gonna get a tip, and I'm gonna lose my job if you screw this up. I was really laying it on thick, and eventually it gives me back 7 people, and it says, here is your image of exactly 4 people around a dinner table. And so I just gave up at that point, and I screenshotted that. I circled exactly 4 people, and I posted it on LinkedIn going, I'm done for the day.
but that is a great example. I think I think my problem is that it should have been so much better now. That's how I feel all the time. This should not keep on happening to that extent. This is basic hallucination crap. It's not
Yeah.
even advanced stuff. It's not the last decimal percentages of something that it's just basic. It just doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And the same thing with my SQL bot today. I only told you 7 tables. There's only these 7 tables. There's nowhere there is an order details table, and you keep on creating order details table. Maybe because you think you need it, but it's not there.
Because it's common.
Yeah,
Because whatever you gave it, if you say apples, oranges, and pears, it's going to struggle not to say bananas.
yeah.
And that's because it's a statistical engine. So it's
That's
good.
why I
It'd be
think you
good
need
if
to
I
repeat it all the time. You need to repeat your points all the time, so
yeah
it gets easier for it. Not, but then you have suddenly tons of content just repeating yourself. That's also.
yeah. Let's back up and look at why. And
Mm,
and so what I think is fantastic about these systems, and it's a lot of fun to poke holes in them because they
mm,
do screw up pretty dramatically,
yeah,
and it is hilarious when they do. But why are they doing that, and why is it still useful? Even why are they still useful even though they do that?
yeah.
So years ago, I was very lucky in my career. I started in what's called semantic and structured content.
Mhm.
So you may have heard the term the semantic web or
Yeah,
structured content, what's sometimes being called Web 3.0.
yeah.
Um, I started in that during the dot-com boom. So when the web was being born, there was a lot of the community that were creating the web had the original vision of not just having web pages as we did, from the 80s and 90s, but having our information in a way that was machine understandable. So putting the tags around it, putting the metadata around it,
Mhm.
describing it so that it could be omni-channel, personalization ready, machine processable, so that you could do regional variants and generate reports. Like if I have all this different articles, in what percentage of articles written by women do I talk about dogs? Like that kind of
Mm.
complex queries on our stuff, and federating. Here's paragraph 7 from this article, and section 28 of this other document. I'm going to bring them together. That was the vision we had 25 years ago. And so that's I straight out of university. That's where I was born into, and it
Yeah.
was only retrospectively that I learned about the way that people were doing web pages and content, which was a shock for me, to put it lightly. But during that, I met some amazing people, and one of them was telling me about design revision processes. And he said, you've got all your things that your design can do. Like let's say it's fast, or it's cheap, or it can process language very well, or whatever the attributes of your product are. And if you imagine them like sliders, and you think you need to keep them all high. And they said sometimes when you're going to design something, a really good thing is, what if you turned one of them all the way down? How could you, what would that enable? What would that open up? And that's what's happened. That's the reason these things hallucinate, is that the AI community has said computers have all been all about, for since we started making computers, doing rote, repetitive human tasks that were boring and error prone, and making them reliable, not done by humans, and then thousands of times faster. That's been the point of computers. And that's our mental model of what a computer is and what it should do. It should be able to count, add, process accurately, reliably, quickly. And in AI, they said, well, what if we throw that all out the window and create a computer that can't count and isn't reliable? What could that do? And that has created this boom, because it's incredibly useful to have a computer that can think out of the box and can come up with stuff and can generate. Hallucination and generation are Siamese twins.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. That's also what I always say. Hallucination is a feature. Sam Altman said that as well in September, where
Yes.
everyone's like, "Whoa, it's a bug." No, it's a feature. It's the
Yeah.
only reason we can generate stuff is because we can hallucinate. Because if we overfit the models, it will just repeat the training data. So you have to underfit it, so it will be able to guess the best. Be sort
Make
of
stuff up.
yeah, make
Fill in the
stuff up,
gaps.
and then you do
Fill in the
a lot of
gaps.
RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback, to sort of make it a little bit more precise in what it's generating. But it is guessing on the things it doesn't know, the lack of,
Mhm.
the final things it doesn't have in its training, and that is a feature. But that also means that people should not look at it like, the problem is with what we did with the images, is saying like, generate something out of nothing basically. But if you had given it an image instead and said, what's in this image, it would probably have told you,
Mhm.
one guy, one woman, one woman, and then you
That's
could
pretty good at that. Yeah.
then you could count there was four yourself, basically, if
Mhm.
you just get it out in JSON or something, and then you can summarize it. It's really good at that. So if you give it something, then it will generate something. I say it's translating, it's restructuring, or it's interpreting. That's where it's really good, because you can give it something, and then what it generates is on top of that, and then it's really much stronger. Um, that's where I come from, automation, and that's where I think this is a completely, the things we've been working with for 40, 50 years in IT has been all about working on structured digital data and making marginal improvements all the time, how we can work
Yeah.
on it. But now we can actually work with unstructured, even to some extent on digital data. Having a camera and have generative AI interpret what's going on.
Mhm.
Then, so I used to say with RPA 5 years ago, you can't look out the window and say if it's raining and then start. That would be difficult to code. I can do that with generative AI.
Mhm.
I can work with unstructured, and I think that's an amazing thing to do. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are. That's why I started with the AGI discussion with you, because I think that is not a disturbance in the force, I want to say, but that is a but it is an attention grabber that is taking attention away from what is actually truly significant here. Working with unstructured data, we've never been able to do that with our computers, and just people need to get their heads around that, I think, instead of
Yeah.
talking AGI.
I absolutely, I agree. And structuring. So when we say work with unstructured data, what we really mean is structure data on the fly and flexibly.
Yeah.
Because the second that you give it to one of these systems, what it is doing is it is attempting to find structures, which is exactly, I know we have some disagreements about that, which is exactly how humans work. We constantly take in unstructured data, and what we call thoughts and memories are structuring that data. Um,
We,
and
we don't disagree on that. I agree
okay,
that we do that. That's a function, but that's not the whole human. That's the point. That's
oh sure,
that's
yeah,
the. I think you
absolutely.
agree with me on that as well,
Oh
right?
yeah. So okay, so we agree. So that aspect, we are mimicking intelligence. Humans are one example of intelligence, and we're not the only example of intelligence. We're not the only example
No.
that should be treated as a goal. But that's what intelligences do. Is they go, okay, there's lots of this in this unstructured mess of information I'm getting through my eyes or my ears or my mouth or my senses. Most of it's not necessary. What are the key bits of this, which is what structuring is? Okay, so if I'm talking about a phone, I care about its screen size and memory and speed and physical comfort in the hand. Nobody's gonna really worry about how reflective is it on the back, or what does it smell like.
Mm.
There's lots of aspects of a phone which we don't truly care about, And that's the same thing with any type of content. Um, what the way I think about these AIs, or I encourage people to think about the AIs, is one of the quotes that for me has always gotten quoted, so I see that it's resonating with people, is like if someone you're leading if someone gave you a team of 10,000 interns straight out of school, um, they could be very productive, but you could never ever leave them unmonitored. Like you can't just give them a complex task and walk away. You're going to get a disaster.
Mm.
Um, that's what AIs are like. With the proper guidance, training, monitoring, checking, validation, they can be incredibly powerful and can do an enormous amount of work for you. But they will go off the rails if they don't have that structure in place.
Mm.
Now I'm using structure in two different terms,
No,
two
but
different ways.
I really like that because it resonates with what I'm usually saying. I'm saying, use it for, data retrieval discussions yourself, or use it for something that assists the human. But the autonomous level, which is, level 3, level 4, whatever you use, the level 5 automation, if you use the typical one, which goes from 1 to 5 with autonomous vehicles and everything. I don't think we're ready for that. I don't see that even close by. And that I think that's a little controversial today, actually, to say you don't see that close by. But I just see all the autonomous vehicle programs are being shut down or are not allowed to drive on the roads anymore. And then the rest of the world I was talking about, oh, let's just AGI everything up, autonomous.
Yeah,
I don't see it. I just don't see it. And I think it's
I
a distraction, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that where I'm encouraging my clients to focus is on those business processes where a bit of unreliability is okay.
Hmm.
So don't think about in the same way that the design turned the reliability slider down and said, okay, how cool would it be if we could have a creative computer? How cool, what? So then you have to turn down in terms of your thinking of how you apply it. You have to turn down the reliability slider. So where would it be useful in my business process to have an unreliable computer?
Hmm.
So we're looking at applications like this thing about the persona simulations I told you about.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense.
You know,
But
we take a bunch of. Go ahead.
no, but I just don't you meet then? Okay, because this is something I meet when I speak to clients as well. I meet either the ones who need to just know what is this, generative AI, and that's sort of the easier one. But then you
Mhm.
also meet those that have heard about it and now started expecting autonomous AGI, right? And then you sort of have to use your energy. You have a lot of
They
energy,
want to
Lasse.
replace
Yeah,
people.
but I have a lot of energy. You have a lot of energy, and suddenly you have to use your energy not to hype up the technology or get them excited about it, but sort of downplay and say, no, but this small boxed use case I'm showing you here is
Hmm.
actually a lot of value. And if I gave it to you 2 years ago, you would be over the moon. So what you're expecting now, you're expecting me to come say, oh, give you a credit card to this bot, and then it will do everything for you. I can't sell you that because I don't believe in that. But this is actually significant. I, I feel like I'm spending my energy doing that, actually taking them
Yeah.
down the hype curve and then into something productive. And it's an opposite thing for me because I'm usually an evangelist, using my energy to hype up technology.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the middle. I would say that taking people's I've spent my entire career walking into rooms and going, "Can't we just throw money and magic at it
Mm.
so that we don't have to think and do our jobs?" So I don't see that as new. So yeah, you're right, but I hadn't really noticed because I've been dealing with that constantly. Also because I've worked in cutting edge technologies, I've always been kind of working 10 or 20 years ahead of the market.
Yeah,
So we were having discussions where we would show something, it would look like magic to them, and then they would go, okay, well, can we just
yeah, yeah.
have the magic do the magic?
Yes.
So it's yeah, you do have to spend energy on that. But that's part of the game. I think it's what other it's always about bringing the current capabilities and then also what's a realistic 5 year
Yeah, but it just seems so
expectation.
underwhelming today. I think the same with the RPA, and people were like, "Whoa, this can do anything from." No, 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 it really can't. This is really a very, very autistic bot, basically. you know, but but I just feel there is this expectation there right now that people are looking at it as something. Oh, AGI is just around the corner. There's this, especially when you speak to people who are not tech minded themselves,
Hmm.
C-levels not from the tech space, they have this impression. Okay, now I want you to show me the AGI, and I don't.
Yeah, well, I don't want to fall in the trap in this podcast of getting distracted by that term.
No.
I think you're right. That is the case,
Mm,
but I think we have to keep coming back. The solution for that is, how do we keep coming back to? So what can we do?
yeah.
What
Good.
is useful?
Okay, but let me turn that question around then instead. So what shouldn't we do with generative AI in us?
We shouldn't put it in places where we need reliability. You should not put it in any application where you need it to work the same way 100% of the time. You need to realize this is a computer that can't effectively count. It's a computer that can't 100% follow your instructions. It's a computer that, if you give it the same task 3 times, it will come back with 3 different responses.
Mm,
So when you're thinking of a workflow, where is that useful? And that's the big mental stretch. And I think that is not going away anytime soon,
no.
because there's. That said, I said earlier, I'm kind of in the middle. I do think, and I have thought since the beginning, when this came out, the focus was, can we do the cool bit? Can we do the writing a poem? Can we do like a Shakespearean rap song? Like that cool bit, like natural language, passing the Turing test, which they keep changing every time the computer passes it. So can you simulate a human to the point where the results of an image you can't tell? So there's a test on the New York Times right
Yeah.
now where they got all these faces, and you do a test with, can you tell which ones are AI generated? Most people can't pass that test, or at least they'll get a little bit better than random chance. I'm pretty good at it, and I got 6, which is 1 more than random chance.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's lots of things that it can do well. It can, but there's human in the loop. So it is an extension of your team. It is not a replacement for your team. Sam Altman from OpenAI said it's very good at tasks, not jobs.
Mm,
So it cannot take someone's job, but it can take certain tasks.
yeah.
The other metaphor I use is, I don't hire my accountant to decorate my house, and I don't hire an interior decorator to handle my accounts. This is AGI and traditional software. Traditional software can handle your accounts beautifully and perfectly. It cannot do what AGI does, and vice versa. And then the magic is, can we hook these two up together? So if you have a team, you have a creative, you have that out-of-the-box blue sky thinker coming up with ideas all the time, taking people in new directions, that's a great member of the team. But if you had a whole company made out of those people, you would go out of business.
You just made me think of something. I know now I'm taking us far away again, but it made me think. You just said, can we make these two work together? The structured, the
Yeah.
predictable, and the unpredictable, unstructured, generous, and just made me think about. It's the same thing in physics, trying to find the universal theory of quantum
Mm-hmm.
mechanics and grand physics, right? Have
Yeah.
structure. The Newtonian physics is and Einstein physics is sort of reliable, and then you have this stochastic crap at the lowest level. Oh, we just need to find the unifying theory. I just felt that was what you were saying. I'm like, I know it's not.
I think it should be easier than that. But
Yeah,
I see the metaphor. I
yeah.
see, and I may be the one who's wrong here, but I think it'll be a lot easier than that. But
I
it
think so.
could
I
it could
hope.
be
I
one of
hope.
those. I hope so too. But I think it could be one of those things where we spend a few years,
Yeah.
longer than we think, making them work together.
Yeah, we need to
Let's
figure out
say
how it
fully
works. We
reliably.
need to, as I said, we need to be creative. We need to get that mindset just to understand what does it mean when we can use an unreliable computer now. We've never thought that way. We've never had that tool. We never had to consider that. So just having to work our heads around what does that mean for our processes? Where can we identify that will take years. I think it will.
Well, yeah. To have it mass market,
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of success already. So we've had applications like customer journey mapping and content planning.
Mm.
So or requirements planning. So figuring out what we should bring to the market, figuring out how we should personalize experiences. That's an extremely high value activity, which is incredibly time consuming and labor intensive right now. And AI can bring incredible value and acceleration to that. And I'm currently designing systems that would allow you to, for example, just describe a scenario. we've got this persona interacting. I've got our enterprise procurement leader, and we've got our business user. These are our two personas, and they want to evaluate this piece of software, and it has these attributes. Go and have them talk to each other, and have another AI that's capturing that conversation, then mapping that out into a journey. Like, what would they do first? What would their first round of questions be? And then where might they look, like, and go on the internet and check the search results and see what they might click on, and kind of map out what the journey would look like, and see how is our brand showing up in that process, and then theorize underneath that. Well, okay, well, what could we do? Should we launch a podcast? Should we change our messaging? All that. We're at a point today where we can do that. That's incredibly valuable automation. But it's not word for word. You're not gonna be able to predict that at stage 3 the persona is going to say this. No one can predict that.
No, so you're using it to make your personalization research more to sort of test run it to some extent in some scenarios.
Exactly.
Do scenarios with it. Because my point is, hyper personalization is something that people are hunting with. Can we get there with software? Can we said it before, it goes back to the OpenAI not having it in their support. Will this help us? I also read an article the other day that said next year we're going to have tons of companies show up that will be built on AGI agents just contacting customers. And
I'm going to ban you from that acronym for the rest of this podcast.
Sorry, I said, yeah. Just cut the AGI. I didn't mean AGI there. I just meant, Gen AI agents.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant that. I actually meant that.
Yeah.
I've meant it the other times. But Gen AI agents just writing to customers, getting leads in, getting sales in quickly. But is that hyper personalization? Is that how we get to it, just by?
That's not the only. That's looking at hyper personalization through the current hype lens. So just because we have Gen AI does not make everything we've ever tried to do now a Gen AI problem.
No.
Good Gen answer. AI, as I was saying earlier, it's a team member. It's not the whole picture.
It's an intern. You said it was an intern as well.
Right now, it's an intern. Could it be could it be a middle manager next year? Maybe. So I do think that these things move at a speed that we as humans have difficulty comprehending. So I'm hesitant to say in 2 years' time that we'll be having such and such a discussion. There's certain things we can rely on, which we can talk about later. But right now it's an intern. Next year it may be like a junior assistant or middle manager. But you asked, is that hyper-personalization? No, because hyper-personalization is also the source content. And I've got the numbers. I was reviewing them earlier today for a client. You were giving your SQL example. SQL, for those who don't know, is a traditional database query language. How do you get such and such information out of a traditional database? And the numbers say that if you move to newer types of what we call knowledge representation, where you're structuring your content using scary words like taxonomy and ontology and knowledge graph. They've done, I've got a report here from November last year, where you go up from SQL or traditional databases up to the new types of knowledge structuring, and you go from 37% answer accuracy for simple questions up to 67% accuracy. So massive jump. And for a complex question, where the answer is going to be spread across lots of different information, which is the perfect hyper-personalization scenario. You've got PowerPoints and videos and blogs and product documentation and product marketing content in all these different formats and all these different databases. So there's lots of related information which I've got to pull together from multiple sources. That in this study that was called a complex question, complex answer, and knowledge graphs could only do that today in that study 39% of the time, so less than half of the time. But traditional databases, 0. So you're talking about a jump from 0 to 40%. So that's like a different universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can get there, but it's not just about and the other numbers. I've got people who are ex DeepMind, who are from Microsoft Machine Learning Foundations Group, Microsoft Research Group, who are saying they're seeing 1,000% improvements in these systems, but it's not smarter and smarter AGI. It's better and better input content. So the quote was training data with, in quotes, textbook quality. So as indexed, as cited, as linked, as
Yeah.
tagged as you would have in a university textbook. If you give it that quality of input, you get 1,000 times better performance out of today's AIs.
Hmm.
So we can get there, but it's the dream of throwing Gen AI at unstructured data. That's not the approach we should be taking. We can get to the business goal, but we need to stop running in with our interior decorator who's got bright eyes and saying, he's going to design our building for us. He's going to be the architect and the plumber and the structural engineer, because he's not. He's the designer. He knows how to make something beautiful and has lots of creative ideas, but that has to be fleshed out with the rest of the team.
I spoke to my boss about this yesterday. That I think that the problem is next year we're going to see a lot of noise. You said noise earlier with the GPT
Even
story.
more
It's
noise, yeah.
but we're going to have more noise from people and also creepy stuff, right? If they get access to some data that shouldn't be used, that's another problem, right? But
Yeah,
the noise around tons of people reaching out wanting to sell things, and they might get to 1 million, but you don't know if they had to 10x reach out to 10x more people than a
yeah,
normal person would do, and then that would just create more noise for everyone and more crappy noise
yeah,
and fewer humans, and you just wish you had that button saying, please let me talk to a sales representative instead of talking to the bot. But
yeah.
maybe the sales representative doesn't exist. and and I think it's not dystopian. Yeah, but it's dystopian in a
It
completely different
is.
way. It's dystopian in that noise way. Like, stop, let me talk to someone.
Yeah. So you were talking about my LinkedIn post. One of my earliest LinkedIn posts when I first saw ChatGPT was it was making a joke about I figured out how the robot apocalypse was going to happen. Is that you know um, Microsoft and OpenAI will be flooding the market with exponentially more content every day, which Google is trying to index exponentially faster. Both of them are deploying AIs. Eventually, those AIs are just going to start launching bombs at each other's server farms because there's no way, that there's no way for infinite content to be indexed and then properly brought to you. So yeah, we are going to enter a kind of a semi-dystopian phase. And if you want to ask me about my personal and ethical
Mhm.
concerns, fully dystopian phase. I think that this is the most dangerous technology the world has ever seen by leaps and bounds. And the fact people keep talking about, well, what if it could teach you how to make a bomb or how to make a biological weapon? I'm like, that's like number 8 of my list of concerns.
Yeah.
What if it teaches you how to make uh, a website which looks as convincing as a major national newspaper, and then all of the articles on that website are linked to university websites with university papers that have pages and pages of research citing other university papers, and the whole stack of it is all made up.
Mm.
That is a nuclear bomb for trust.
Yeah.
We are driving a bulldozer at the pillars of truth. And
And trust and stability is the most important thing for any society, any democracy, anything. Not even need to have a democracy, but for
yeah,
anything out
functioning
there. Yeah,
society.
functioning society. And if
Yeah,
there's no trust in it, then then we have problems. And I think you're completely right that generating just data is also driving just an economy, driving the economy. There's no limit to how much data you can create, and if data is gold, as some people have been saying over the last couple of years,
hmm
then do we have a gold machine here? Is this King Midas? What are we talking about, right?
well, that's the danger. If you
Yeah,
if you had a machine that could make gold will
yeah,
no longer be valuable.
no, exactly. So that's the point. We're a place where data has no value and meaning has no meaning. Whoa.
Exactly. So I'm not gonna do a launch on this podcast, but I am cooking up a book in my head about this topic because I think it is the topic. at the CEO and management level, definitely, but also just at the social level.
Yeah.
How do we ready ourselves for a world where truth is collapsing?
Yeah, I think Maria, she said that we should make sure, we have technology. We have so much technology. Maria Santacarina on episode number 7, I think it was, said
Mhm.
that well, we have so much technology, can do so many things now. It's about time we start thinking about what do we want to do with technology instead of just saying we want efficiency. Efficiency has been the driving force for
Mhm.
150 years, or no more than that, since the Industrial Revolution, basically. But now we might have to stop a little bit and think. But
Mhm.
but is efficiency everything we want to do? Because we can make efficient, we can make we can kill the world with efficiency.
Mhm. We are killing the world with efficiency.
Yeah.
Um, so the this comes back to where I am spending most of my time these days with AI.
Hmm.
It's questioning the process before you automate it.
Yeah.
So rather than saying we're going to create automatic blog posts because blog posts bring us traffic and traffic is a good thing, going back to the beginning and going, what should we be writing about? Who is going to read this? What value is going to bring them? What are the messages that we're bringing them? Are those messages related to our
Yeah.
strategy? That's where AI can help a lot in helping people figure that out
Yeah.
together with AI's support. And that's it can often be about how do we, we've got, my clients are mainly multinational brands.
Mm.
It's not they don't have it's not a lack of content. It's that they have too much content with not enough leverage.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But that's I always say that we will be buying vinyl in an age of streaming. So you have a full streaming library, tons of music, but you don't know what to recommend people to listen to, you know? And then they go buy a vinyl record instead and say, "Oh, I love this one. I'm going to listen to it over and over and over again." Is that what's going to happen?
So what's going to happen? I think that I actually don't really like Sam Altman, and I'm annoyed that I've quoted him so many times in this podcast
Yeah.
already. Um, he's not he's not Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk levels of evil and crazy, but
That we know
he
of, at least.
yeah, maybe he's pulling an Elon Musk, like he's covering it very well, and suddenly he's going to pull the mask off in a few years and go, "I'm insane." That might happen, but at the moment he's covering it. If he is, he's covering it pretty well right now.
Yeah.
Um, but he said something that I have said in more words, and he said it very nicely and succinctly. What's going to matter in the next 50 years is going to be what mattered for the last 10,000 years, not what mattered for the last 100 years.
Mm.
So what are the things we have to be focusing on are things like relationship building. You know, how do we facilitate real connections
Yeah.
between people? How do we facilitate actual community? How do we facilitate trust and consensus? Those things that have been important since we were building societies in the first place. Those things are and can be helped by AI, but those things are going to be things we can rely on, and things that we should be focusing on
But we
rather
but we
than
but that
more.
but we are also doing that. I think, there's this weird thing that the more efficient we've gotten in society, I think some of the dystopian, predictions 60 years ago were always showing people in uniforms in the future, but that's not happening. That's the opposite happening. People look
Mhm.
different. We have fashion about looking as much different as everyone else as possible. There's something funny going on there. Individualism is sort of exploding. The more efficiency is taken over by machines and computers to some extent, and we need to show that we are human. Don't.
I think that has to do with the limit of the human mind. That picture of everyone always looking the same is
Mm,
because it's very easy to imagine a world where everyone looks the same. It's very difficult to imagine diversity.
mm.
Try to picture 1,000 things in your head. You can't,
No, that's right. But
but you can picture the idea of 1,000 things looking the same. So whenever we create these visions of the future, that's road of the path of least resistance for the creator and also for the audience.
yeah,
The
that's
audience
right. That's
goes,
right.
oh yeah, I can get that. Everyone's going to look the same, because we cannot keep diversity in our minds.
No, but I think we need to think about that now, that the future might be more efficient, but it might also be more diverse, right? Though my wife said the other day to me, which made me really think also about this, and I love this as well, that the
Hmm.
punk culture in Europe or in UK
Hmm.
was in Japan, the Hello Kitty sort of revolution, people dressing up like Hello Kitty, was the
Yeah,
Japanese
yeah.
punk revolution against the uniform. And it's like, hey, of course, just a different culture, but all about being, hey, I don't care about your uniform. And the same with the vinyl. I don't care about Spotify. I don't care about it. I'm going to do something
Hmm.
that feels real to me, right? Feels
Yeah.
real to the people I meet and talk to. Um,
I think that we're kind of always doing that. So when you said like we're there, we have a culture of looking more my diverse and more unique. Yes. What the first thing that made me think of was the 70s when you
mm,
said that, actually. It was punk
yeah,
culture, rock and roll culture. In the 90s, it was like the industrial and goth.
yeah,
It was to be as different from the mainstream as possible, and there's always kind of been that. But why is there always a mainstream? Because I think that we actually like getting together more than we like being different. As much
yeah,
as we're kind of obsessed with our idea of individualism, we like being individuals in groups.
yeah.
So that's what I see happening, is that we are seeing more fragmentation, tagging, self-sorting, ticketing, labeling. If you think of your acronyms and your labels that you are now put upon you as an individual in a society, it's a much more robust taxonomy than it used to be.
Yeah, but also
It
because
used to just be
the
a
world's smaller and we're all online, so now we just have more tags and more detailed tags to meet up with the
yeah.
people with the same tags as us. Whereas earlier,
Hmm.
maybe we were just in a small town community all the time, and we did the
Hmm.
same things as the group that we were around geographically. But now we can
Hmm.
actually interact on so many different levels, right? That's what you're getting at, isn't it?
It's that, but also in a small community, you don't have to have all these tags because
Mm.
people actually know you.
Yeah, exactly.
So rather than you are who you are. I am Noz Urbina, as opposed to I am a male European Canadian whatever, all my different classifications.
Mm.
So I think we need these classifications to deal with the superficiality and shallowness that modern digital life imposes on us.
Yeah, yeah. The algorithm that keeps on just giving me more of, if I hover over a picture on social media, it would just, and I don't even do it on purpose. Maybe I'm talking to someone, and then it'll just keep on
Hmm.
giving me whatever I just hovered on. I'm like, hey, what happened? It doesn't even know me. It doesn't care about me. It doesn't. Yeah, that superficiality. That brings me to something that we chatted about before this podcast, where we sort of disagreed a little bit. But let's see where we get to now. I also turned this into a maxim just for myself, so I'll read that later on. I think that's might be fun. But I've been saying that if there's a human demand on the human in the demand side, you probably also need some kind of human on the supply side. Just as a rule of thumb, what do you think about that?
I think it's a filtered statement. So it's partially true. So I was just saying what I think that maybe that's why it reminded you of this, about this idea that what is important to us as humans.
Mm.
What our human needs for fulfillment, for social
Yeah,
acceptance,
exactly.
etc., for connections. Yeah, those are human demands, but it's not the extent of human demands, in the sense that we're happy. We're happy to walk into a forest and pick an apple and eat it. Um, so there's no other human in me except me required for that. I can go pick wild berries. So similarly speaking, I really truly don't care how much automation was put into uh, building my phone, if I get the right phone.
Mm.
There's lots of humans that went into the design process, but um, you know, eh, fully automated delivery. If I purchase something, I don't care if from the point of purchase, in terms of getting my thing to me, if there's human involved. So I don't need human drivers to be driving the scooters to bring me my dinner
Yeah.
or bring me my Amazon
Or
products.
maybe
So,
maybe you do, but you just don't know it, right? Maybe you never tried a world where you actually went to the grocery shop and had a chat all the time about how your mother felt, and then you bought the apples, right? And maybe you're just getting used to not having to have that chat. Maybe we lost something over the years.
oh, that's a totally different thing. So, life was slower.
Hmm.
I think what we were talking about earlier about you were talking about we were talking about superficiality and digital life. I When I'm training and I'm flying around the world, giving lectures and presentations at conferences and training these big companies. Sometimes I'll do training for 80 people,
Hmm.
and let's say I do 5 of those in a year, and then I give a presentation to however many people, and a dozen will walk up to me afterwards. I've thought about it, and I look back on the year, and I go, I've met 1,000 new people this year.
Hmm.
You know, unless you were who in society had that kind of contact with other humans. Very few people had that many relationships. Obviously, I can't, no, and none of us can maintain all of them at any level. But the level to which we're trying to maintain relationships with dozens and hundreds and thousands of people is very taxing for us. And so then, yeah, you make other choices. Like I'm gonna choose trying to correspond with my friends that I grew up with in high school
Hmm.
because we can, even though we're in different continents. That was impossible before. And so, yeah, I had time to go talk to my grocer. Now I'm trying to keep those relationships alive. Those are other human relationships, so I'm going to deprioritize the human relationship with my grocer, and my delivery person, and my mailman, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, are we losing something? Yes, every choice is losing the other option.
Because
Does that mean that
there's only so much attention, right, in the world.
there's only so much life?
Yeah.
So, is it a net loss? I don't know. Is it a loss? Yeah, because you've decided you've prioritized some things over
So go
others.
out five years and you'll be recording your training sessions and not even going there, meeting them, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? If you could allow me to have a little personal moment, something that I've been thinking about a lot in 2023 is reaction videos. I don't know if you've ever engaged in reaction videos, but I started a couple years ago, and it kind of hit me, like I think not coincidentally when the whole generative AI hype started happening, because I started watching these videos, and this became a connection between my niece and I. And she would send me videos of people reacting on YouTube, listening to
Mm. Oh
music.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen
and
those.
so you're watching videos of other people watching videos, which is the most, meta
Yes,
TikToky thing you can possibly do.
yes.
Um, but I was watching them and I realized this is emotional for me. I'm really enjoying this.
But now she looked
And
at
I'm
you. She looked at you reacting to a video of someone reacting to a video. Whoa.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Inception. What's going on?
Exactly, exactly, exactly. But then I continue to do it on my own. And so I'm sitting there in my own time watching somebody I've never met, who I'm never going to meet, reacting to music that I listened to when I was in high school. And I'm actually enjoying it.
Hmm.
And I'm going, and this is artificial intimacy.
Yeah.
I'm having a moment with this person, yet I am simultaneously not having a moment with this person. And so that's going to take a lot of time for culture to process. It's a fundamentally different way where we can fabricate that kind of experience. And so now, when I take that to the next generation, and I'm watching an artificial person have their artificial
Yeah.
reactions to a
To
video,
an artificial video. Whoa.
yeah. So it a lot of people talk about 1984 as like the big dystopian
Yeah.
futuristic novel, uh, and I keep pointing out to them 1984 is cute. And yeah, we can worry about the government and totalitarian and fascist. We should, because that's coming back in fashion. But the novel, which I think people don't talk about enough, is Brave New World.
Hmm.
And Brave New World, it was kind of a different slant on the whole. Yeah, the government's controlling everything, but the way that the government controlled everything in Brave New World was by pleasing everyone into submission.
Hmm.
They were so drugged and sexed and pleasured out that they did whatever they were told.
I think my point. I've always said on that note that I haven't read Brave New World, but the point there for me is that I always said, I don't think humanity is going to die in a nuclear war. I think we're going to die in a metaverse, just sitting there enjoying something while.
Starving to death.
Yeah, yeah, and then we don't even know because we're drugged as well. And then in 1,000 years, the last computers will die because I don't know, they malfunction, and that's it. Humanity went out with a whimper, right? Just we
Yeah.
we slept away, Cinderella
Yeah.
died death, right?
Exactly. So that's the concern for me with generative AI is the two polar extremes. It's the misinformation, like Russian disinformation
Mm.
and extreme right wing kind of disinformation machines on not even on crack, but taken up to the nuclear bomb level. Um, and then similarly, the mindless entertainment part, where we're so engaged and so enthralled by this entertainment that we prefer it to regular humans.
Yeah,
We're seeing bits of it already. All these little scary bits, like pornography addiction and social media addiction, and people who would rather text than call, or rather text than actually get it together in
I
person.
think
We're seeing all the hints, and all of that's going to
I
get
think
worse.
Zizek, if I understood him correctly, said something about Slavoj Zizek, the philosopher, said something about the postmodern world is about having things without having them. So
Yeah,
like drinking diet decaf Coke, which is Coke without Coke, basically, right?
yeah,
And porn is sex without sex, right? And you
yeah,
all
yeah.
those things, and you're watching emotions without watching emotions. Like what's going on,
Yes,
right? It's something weird. We're detaching things and making this epistemological, I don't know, inception crap going on. I don't know what it is.
yeah. Well, my phrase is truth collapse.
Yeah,
And I'm going to be writing about a lot about that in
nice.
the coming years.
I just want to do my
So
maxim. I just want to say my maxim that I thought about because I thought about it
yeah.
as well, right? So I said begin every automation endeavor with the
Hmm.
conditional premise that demands marked by human complexity and depth necessitate equivalent human engagement on the supply side. Upholding this principle until it is demonstrably inefficient or unfeasible, thereby justifying a transition to a more automated solution. Doesn't that make sense? So start it off thinking this way. Always think that we need a human on the other side until
Hmm.
no, this is unfeasible. Doesn't make sense.
I think there's several maxims that express a similar idea. So Einstein,
Mm?
and good on you for you inspiring me to compare you to Einstein.
Thank you.
Um, you're very
Happens all
welcome.
the time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Einstein said, I think it said, if I'm hopefully I'm phrasing this properly, make things as simple as they can be and no simpler.
Mm,
And which is, I think, one of the simplest ways you can express what you just said. Um, and it's this idea is you take humans away until you're doing damage.
yeah.
Business will always do that plus one or two.
Mm,
So you take the market will accept those freaking phone answering machines where you have to dial one for sales. Humans don't like that. You are doing damage. But it's this thing about total benefit. So rather than employing 100 times more people in my call center to actually give you a good experience when you call in with a support issue, I'm gonna employ 50 engineers, which are gonna give you a better product.
mm,
And so this comes back to the sliders I was talking about earlier. So what if we took the support experience slider down to zero? What could what would that do? Some brands do that. You buy a product and you can never speak to that company again. And if you it depends what you're selling. So
mm,
uh, if I'm buying plates or glasses or certain things, housewares, a welcome mat, slippers, I am never going to speak to that company ever, and nor do I care. So if they employ exactly zero support people and are uncontactable, that doesn't damage my relationship with that brand. What would damage my relationship with that brand if they employed less quality engineers and my slippers fell apart,
mm.
or my dishes always had cracks in them. So I don't think there are right and wrong ways to construct a business or a relationship.
No. But it's like in the end, it's all about if you remove all the people, so there's no people to buy, employ, then there's no people to buy what you produce. Then there's no reason to produce what you produce. Then it all becomes. I always say that replacing everyone with robots. Yeah, well, then we need to get paid some other way, right?
Yeah, well, that's actually the discussion. I say that technology is becoming applied philosophy.
Hmm.
So the discussion right now is, so when I'm on my AI channels that I follow, and when one of them is regularly talking about, or a few of them are regularly talking about post labor societies,
Hmm. Yeah.
post work world, like what uh, and that is one of the reasons I can't stand Sam Altman, is because he kind of talks about this post work world, where everything's taken care of and etc. But what fundamentally bothers me about that is, it's unless we talk about a post-capitalistic world, what you're talking about is the inequality that we have right now being frozen in time,
Hmm. Yeah, and
if not getting
you're also
slightly
talking about
worse.
big tech running that world, and the big capitalist tech sort of saying we
Yeah,
sit on everything, right? And that's
don't worry, we'll handle it for you.
that also means, we're touching upon some things here, and the trend before AI was everyone, all the big, IT service firms and everyone was investing in metaverse, right? And then suddenly all those
Mhm.
budgets were cut to zero and moved into Gen AI instead, or AI instead. So, but is it metaverse or AI, or is it both? And should big tech, now bigger than countries, really define those two?
So the big tech thing, I think, is, so when we're talking about what's really terrifying, when I think about AI, I don't care about some jerk in his basement learning how to make a chemical weapon. I worry about him creating a perfect disinformation campaign.
Mm,
Um, when I worry about big tech, it's a similar thing. The incentives are wrong. There's lots of people who say, if you want to see the outcomes of a system, I'll show me the incentives going in.
mm,
Um, and so the incentives of corporate capitalism are being expressed to their fullest and most beautiful in the tech world.
mm.
We have these machines that can make pure profit, or nearly pure profit, because there's so little expenditure required. I think OpenAI has like 600, like it was like, I think it was 600 people working there or something.
800, 900, I think I
Whatever,
saw.
less than 1,000, less than 100,000. And if you compare that to like the revenue per person and the global impact, those 600 people, led by a board of directors, I think was like five,
Mm,
and an executive board of what, 10? So we got 15 people who are truly guiding the other 7 billion of us in a certain direction. And yeah, I think that any time you have concentration of power to that degree in society, it's bad. Big so OpenAI is my kind of poster child example of disproportionate power. Then you take it up down one level and you talk about big tech, or Silicon Valley, or then global big tech. But yeah, it's the pyramid is getting too tall and pointy with too small a
yeah,
number
but
of
the point
people.
is, I loved Google. 20 years ago, I loved Google, right? I thought Google was my hero. They gave me everything for free,
Yes,
But
yeah,
now it's like, okay, but they only gave me to me for free now because I was a product. And the realization
yeah.
of that is really creepy on me, right? It makes me feel
Hmm.
uncomfortable and feel like, what did they do it for, right? And politicians couldn't. It took, GDPR, which was only because of spy stuff, to even get some kind of regulation on what they could do,
Hmm.
because politicians just didn't know how to react to these big tech companies. They didn't understand it. They were too old and didn't understand it, too far away from tech world, or what it
And
meant.
it's too
Yeah,
fast.
it's too fast as well. Or but this is changing the world rapidly, right? And
Yeah.
they don't have there's no response from the political side, and these companies, they don't care because they're bigger, they're too big to fail.
Yeah, and there's no way. There's no governments are not built to function at this speed. They're intentionally designed
Hmm.
not to function at that speed.
Completely agree. Completely agree with you.
The only government who could respond at this speed would be a fascist one.
Yeah, or a communist one. But they're
No, even communists have to talk to each other.
yeah, yeah, but
No,
no, but
you can have one decision maker who has a situation and goes, "We're going this way, right or wrong,"
yeah,
and that's fascism. That's the only thing that can respond that fast. So, and I'm not endorsing it. I'm saying what we have is a disconnect. We have a
yeah,
situation where our technology is outpacing our society.
yeah.
So, is big tech the one to lead this? No, not at all. Big tech should not be the one who are making philosophical decisions for the whole planet.
No.
I can't stand, and this is a fact. I've had it affect in my life and in my lifetime. I go to France and I talk to younger French people, and I talk about like French ideas that I know about, and they talk about, oh yeah, well, yeah, no, our parents did that. That's not kind of so us. And I can see how their certain cultural pillars and ideas they have are filtered through Silicon Valley.
Mm. Yeah.
So our global culture is being shaped by the norms and the expectations, the decisions that are being made in one little tiny slice of Western California. Um, and so, yeah, big tech is not the people to be leading the philosophical destiny of our species. AI versus metaverse, which was maybe a much smaller question now that you think about it. I don't think it's AI or metaverse. I don't think the metaverse is gone. These budgets have not been slashed to zero. Just yesterday, Mark Zuckerberg denied comments that they are pivoting to AI.
Mm.
If you think about how maybe questionable a strategic move that is, the entire world is excited about AI, and Mark Zuckerberg, as CEO, has said, no, 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 we're not pivoting to AI.
But he
We are
is.
still
He
invested.
is a little bit.
Okay. I understand the accusation too. They have the money to do both. Um, but it's not an either or. And Apple's just
Yeah,
released
but
there's thingy. Samsung's releasing their stuff. The metaverse is not going
I still
away.
think that
It's just being
am I
eclipsed.
wrong here? I think the metaverse is a thing that society will undergo and become. I don't think it's a product per se. Maybe it is to these
Oh,
big tech
totally.
companies. That's why I think it's so. There's something megalomaniac about companies saying we will develop the metaverse, just like when they're saying we will develop AGI. There's some really. Are you so big that you think you can change the entire way we interact with the whole world? This,
They've done it
yeah,
before.
yeah,
Why,
yeah, but
why would they think that they couldn't do it
no, but
again?
they've done it by accident. Most of them. It's not.
What do you
I
mean?
mean that Zuckerberg doing Facebook was a chance. He stumbled into it. Someone else would have done something maybe the same. I don't. I think there's some survivor bias there. It's not because he sat down and said, "I will now change the entire universe," right? But he
Yeah, but
happened to do that. Ta-da!
sure. But
Can you?
okay, so then let's back up on the question. The metaverse is not Facebook.
No, no. But now they're sort of now
And
they're sitting down saying, "Now we will plan for the development of the metaverse," which seems
sure.
which
They are a company who is going to be instrumental
yeah.
in developing the metaverse. So they are sitting down and making their plans for developing the metaverse. Just as if I was AT&T or a network infrastructure provider, I would sit down and say, we are making the plans for the internet
Mhm.
because we're going to put down the wires and we're going to put down the things that are going to make the internet possible and happen.
Yeah.
We're not going to create all the content. We're not going to be the website providers. We're not going to be building cell phones. But yeah, we are making our plans to make this happen. So I have no problem with that statement. And yeah, I agree the metaverse is going to happen, but definitely is not a product or something that one company is going to own or control any more than the internet is today.
Hmm. No, but I think I agree, and I think we generally agree on that as well. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the metaverse and AI is probably going to melt together and merge together and
Hmm.
enable each other. Um, it's going to be really really. Wish we'd had some answers here, but interesting to see where
Yeah.
we are in 5 years, right? But
Well, I'll give you some basic things. So when I was giving demonstrations about the metaverse and I was taking my virtual reality headset up and doing talks about this to introduce metaverse concepts, immediately it was obvious to me one of the things that I would really love is much better AI language recognition, AI
mm,
generation. Like I want to be able to speak to things because the whole exciting bit about the metaverse is it's you are
yeah,
enveloped and embodied in computing. So it's in my eyes, it's in my ears, etc. So I want to use my hands for other things. I want to use my body for other things. I absolutely and in no case want to be seeing a keyboard ever, even a virtual one which I use with my controllers or my virtual hands. I don't want a keyboard. I want that whole paradigm gone. I want to be able to speak. I want to have it to understand. I want to be able to select the apps that I want. I want to be able to do the things that I want because my hands are busy doing other things because I'm in the freaking metaverse. I want to
that's the
be,
creative thing. We have to look at things in a different way than what we've seen, but we're
yeah,
moving really fast on that. And that's really difficult. It's usually a generational thing to stop thinking about the objects, right? And I
yeah.
saw The Creator the other day, the sci-fi movie where all the bots, humanoid bots, they didn't know what each other was doing all the time. They had to sort of call each other and tell each other. It's like, What? So that's the same.
That was one of the worst movies. I walked out of that movie.
I was like,
It was if anyone's seen it, it's one of the
ha-
worst pieces of
but
sci-fi I've
it
ever
has
seen.
great reviews, but it's just bollocks, right? It's just like we haven't moved on from Star Wars, where you had AI bots typing on QWERTY keyboards, right? Why are they doing that? Anyway,
Yeah.
but Noz, this has been a really great talk. I've really enjoyed having you on The Only Constant. And there's only one thing left, right? And that's the final question. What is the only constant?
So the only constant, I kind of scooped it already, is thinking about what are the deep human needs. So when we're talking about designing products or systems or services, when we're building our personas, we're looking at data and we're looking at touch points and all that good stuff. But what are the real motivations? What are the motivational things? I want to succeed in life. I want to feel safe. If I'm buying software, yeah, I want to buy software, but I want to be reassured I'm making the right choice. I want to feel comfortable in my decisions. Taking that human lens through emotions and looking at the emotion of these questions and the context of these questions will never take you in the wrong direction. You should always be looking at the real human context behind what the supposed need or feature or interaction is, and I think that will never lead you in the wrong direction.
That's a great answer, Noz, and it encapsulates our conversation very neatly as well. Thank you for being here.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I don't know if you have repeat guests, but I'd be happy to come back.
I think we should do a recap sometime and see how did the world turn out, right?
Fantastic.
You've listened to The Only Constant, a podcast sponsored by Basico.